Hi there, so welcome to the next part of our beginners series for Final Cut Pro version 10.3, and we're just going to go through some basic editing adjustments on our project with our selection menu. So just kind of coming over here. So we're mainly going to work utilising these tools down here. So this is the arrow, which is our select tool, and there's a little drop down menu. Anywhere you can see this little V, there's a little drop down menu that accompanies it. So we're going to just use this selection tool, and I'm going to show you what each one of these sort of does. So the first option here is select. So that's the letter A on your keyboard. So all these letters that we have at the end, they also correlate to a keyboard shortcut. So if you press the letter A on your keyboard, press the letter T, press the letter P, all of these ones, it's going to access the tools. And we're going to learn these and use these because they're extremely useful. So A is select. So it's basically what you use to select most things. And it has a lot of functions as well. As you can see, certain times the hand tool also appears in various ways when you're making selections. So does the trim tool appears as part of A. This is where you pick clips up, put them places, where you can swap them around. You just use it to click and hold, click and drag. At the end of the clip here, I'll draw this one to your attention as well. So when you clear, Final Cut Pro projects have this sort of magnetic function, which came into play in the new version of Final Cut Pro X as opposed to previous versions like Final Cut Pro 7, where you could sort of place them anywhere. So when it sort of likes your clips to be stuck together. So it likes to make sure that there's no accidental sort of tiny little gaps. Like for example, if I take this one and pull it out, it likes to sort of reorganize it so that everything else will sort of reorientate itself and kind of ping back into place. So the A tool kind of works with that quite efficiently. So it's your general selection tool. You drag all over the screen. It does most things. So in the drop down menu, the next option then that we have here is trim. That's the letter T. So if we can access it just by clicking on this option here. Or if I go back to A, that's going to take me back to my mouse. The letter T on my keyboard, it's going to change it to this little trim tool. So it's quite a handy little function. So it does one of the things the letter A does automatically anyway, which is as you hover over the end of a clip, it will make a couple of different types of adjustments. So as I hover over here, can you see this symbol here? It looks, the bracket is kind of just leaning in to the left. What that means is if I click and drag that, that's going to pull. Oh, come on, no, wrong one. Just that one bracket. It's going to allow me to just click and pull in this portion of the clip. Now you can see here there's a point where that went red. When that goes red, that just means that there's no more clip left. So these clips are always referring up here to your original media. Your original media doesn't change. It's non-destructive editing, so it doesn't change your original media. But down here you can kind of make adjustments to that using the trim tool. So this adjusts how much of that clip with a point where you want it to kind of start and stop. Same thing on the other side. So if you're going to hover over with the other edge of the trim tool, it's kind of hard to maneuver sometimes. You're going to find where you adjust the clip on the other side. So at this side here, can you see the bracket is leaning into the left? So that's adjusting the clip on the left. On this side here, where the bracket goes there, that's adjusting the clip on the right. Now, this option here, right in the middle, where the two brackets are even, that's going to kind of keep the clips in the same orientation. But if I drag this over, that's going to decide where in that clip it starts and stops. So you can see in the viewer above, the point where that clip ends and cuts into that next one. So they're kind of cutting in both as they smile. She leans back, and then it comes into that smile. Yeah, so you have these kind of different options here. So the trim tool here will allow you to pull that start and stop point between clips without changing. As you can see, as this happens, that pulls the orientation of this, pulls it around. This, everything else stays exactly where it is, and you just work on the start and end point between these two clips alone. Another useful function, if I use Command plus just to zoom in of the trim tool here, is that as you hover over the middle of the clip, you've got these two kind of scroller options, and I almost imagine it a little bit like a roll of film. So if you click and drag this clip, what you're doing, you're keeping the clip orientation the same, so it's not taking up any more or less time, it's not adjusting any of the clips on either side, but you're changing the point of the clip where it starts and stops. So it's kind of like sort of scrolling around a bit of film. So if I use this one here, let's do the start and stop. So it comes in from here, this is the hug, So you might decide actually you want that to start earlier. So you're going to pull this on, you want a different portion of the clip. It's now going to start from there. See, I don't quite like the hand and the head there, although it would be good if you had more of that. So let's start just as she reaches, maybe there. Nope. Let's pull that over, maybe there. And smile, clip, and finish. Which is good if you don't want to change the length of your clip. You don't want anything else to sort of reorientate it and stuff. It needs to occupy maybe a certain space and a certain length of time. But you can just decide how much of that clip you want to utilize. So it's a very, very handy little tool. The next option there is the position tool. The position tool again can be accessed either by selecting P or by hitting the letter P on your timeline. So I'm going to go to the end of this clip here just to sort of emphasize one of the particular properties of the position tool. So like with the letter A, go back to the letter A, if I drag this clip and try to pull it further down the line, I can't. It won't allow me. It brings it back to, it wants all clips that are present to be kind of stuck together and magnetic. If, however, I go to the letter P, changes, my mouse loses its tail a little bit, and I click and drag it this time and let go, it will allow me to do so. It will also allow me to put it sort of anywhere on the clip and override. It's going to go right on top of it. It's that override function that we looked at in a previous video. Command Z to undo. So yeah, it kind of like sort of temporarily disables the magnetic function of the A select tool, and also allows you to override other clips. And what this does is this also generates a thing called gap media. So this portion here now, it is nothingness. It is black and it is silent. So if I could just click under here, you can watch. There's nothing there, but it's sort of now a solid nothingness that is malleable. So the magnetic function is still present, but they've sort of overridden this with a function called gap media. So if I go back to my letter A, my selection tool, I can now utilize this piece of clip in the same way. So I can kind of use it a bit like a clip, but it's sort of solid, malleable nothingness called gap media, which you can kind of use. You can chop it up and you can kind of place it in exactly the same way you do any of your clips. Which is kind of cool. You can have moments of black or moments of silence, and they can come in handy. You can also generate those using the keyboard shortcut. It's Alt W. So it's Alt or Option, depending on how you kind of look at that. So your Alt W function will allow you to generate gap media, and it usually, I believe it generates 3 seconds worth. Yeah, Alt W, Alt W, Alt W. It'll just create these 3 second blocks, and it will create those again wherever the playhead happens to reside. So if I put it here, it's going to cut it in half, and it's going to place a gap in the middle. So they're handy. Command Z I'm using to undo. So yeah, so that is our position tool. So the position tool is handy for overriding the magnetic function, for creating gap media, and for placing things, for overriding onto the primary timeline. The next tool down is our range selector. The range selector allows you to select a portion of the clip that's on the timeline, and you can use that for a variety of different functions. You might decide you make the range selection, and then you might just want to paste that portion somewhere. So I might do Command C. If I do Command V here, for example, that's going to place it there. I might use it to do my Alt V. I remember on the Alt V, paste it above the timeline. So maybe you just want that portion. Maybe this is something that you need to correct there, or you want to add a mask. The range selector, you can also use it to apply particular effects. It doesn't work with all of them, but there's a few effects that you can apply just to that particular range. We're going to go into this in a later video, but for example, our speed adjustment. So I've made a range selection using the range selector in this portion of the clip. Maybe I want just that portion of the clip to be in super slow motion. So it gets really slow, transitions in, and then out again back to normal. So the range selector has a few different portions, but mainly about making an adjustment to a particular portion of the clip, or taking properties of that particular portion and pasting them elsewhere. The next one down, much simpler, is the blade tool, the letter B. So we can select this one here. Turns our cursor into a little blade, and that does exactly what you think it does. It cuts. So wherever you see this little kind of amber line, if you select that portion, it's going to cut those clips into different portions. So if I then go back to the letter A, these are now separate clips on the timeline that you can move around, you can put above, you can kind of do whatever you need to do. So those are your that's your blade tool. It's quite a simple one, or if you want to kind of cut the end of the clip and delete it, that's fine as well. Just a wee note there on the delete key. The delete key here is backspace, but it can what that does, what the backspace key does, is it deletes and closes the gap. Command Z. If I undo and I hit the keyboard shortcut Shift backspace delete, that's going to replace with gap. So what that does again is it doesn't change the orientation of the other clips. Maybe you've got your videos are all aligned to sound or to a track, and you don't want all of these clips to kind of their musical timing to change, but you just need to get rid of a clip and replace it with something else. You can use the backspace to replace it with a gap, as opposed to deleting entirely. And if you just did the delete on its own, that's going to close everything. So here we have delete, Command Z to undo, Shift backspace or delete, and then that creates with a gap. So let's undo that as well. Yeah, so then we're going to go into the zoom. So the zoom one, again, it just kind of sort of zooms in a little bit, lets you see things in detail. I tend to use Command plus and Command minus a bit more. So I'm going to go back to the letter A. I just find it's a bit more useful. It's kind of user friendly. So Command plus as many times as you need to, or Command minus will take you right in or pull you out. And then the final option here is the hand, which is kind of just a sort of dragging one. So you can kind of drag along if you need to. But it's yeah, your mouse kind of does a lot of these things anyway, so you don't sort of need it to be there all the time. I'm going to go back to my letter A. So these are kind of the basic sort of selection tools and the majority of the functions that they have. The hand actually is also so it's useful for the screen as well. If this is maybe in different orientations, you can use the hand to sort of drag things around. It has a few functions, but just have a play with it and use it as you will. So those are our basic sort of selection tools and the majority of things that they do. So you can begin working with those and having a play. So thank you very much.